This is what separates me from everybody else.
Yo, crazy.
I still record to tape. It's the
That's
most expensive medium there is, but it does all the work for you. And when people hear it, they not only hear what you did, they feel it.
Real quick, if you're new here, welcome to the TrevBeats Show. Make sure you subscribe if you want to stick around. And for the regulars, if you ever feel compelled to throw some extra support our way, check out the membership options next to the subscribe button. It's strictly for those who want to help us do more, but your viewership is support enough. Now back to the show.
TrevBeats Show, TrevBeats Show. TrevBeats Show, TrevBeats Show.
Welcome back to another episode of the TrevBeats Show. Now, if you know anything about West Coast hip hop or just top tier immaculate production in general, you already know who this is. He's a Compton native, a pioneer of the West Coast sound, a multi-platinum selling artist, and one of the most respected producers and engineers to ever touch a mixing board. From his classic debut, Quik is the Name, to laying down tracks for legends like Pac, Snoop, Sugar Free AMG, Jay-Z, his fingerprints are all over the soundtrack of our lives. Please welcome the one and only, the legendary, my brother, DJ Quik, to the TrevBeats Show.
Trev, what up, my guy?
Yo. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How you doing, man?
I'm good, boss. I'm good.
Yeah, man. Well, super happy for you to be with us today, man. I see you at work. That looks like a duality. For those of you that don't know, it's a bar. Stop playing. So, yeah. So, yeah, man, it's like, honestly, man, on the show, I love bringing people that really have contributed to the game, man. And no one has done that more than you. Yeah, man, like for real, man, like for real. And I'm not going to say it goes unnoticed, but it's like, I still think that conversation needs to happen a little bit more. We're going to have one today. So one thing I like to do, man, is, I grew up listening to your music. I mean, we about the same age, but I've grown listening to your music and before I knew you. But, other than we all know you're from Compton, I want to know about that journey before and leading up to making music. You know what I'm saying? Like, how did that happen? Where did you get the bug from when you started, first, starting to venture down this road, man?
Man. I don't know, just growing up, like listening to music, watching Soul Train.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. Soul Train was my inspiration for everything. From the
Mm-hmm.
time I was 3, 4, 5 years old, seeing people dance to this music and you know, seeing my people.
Mm-hmm.
That was what was inspirational. Listening to Curtis Mayfield, you know, at a young age, it put a battery in my back.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, I was playing records as a kid. Like, I think the first time I even played a record was like 1 or 2 years old, and I didn't scratch the record. I just understood naturally the mechanics of a turntable and how that record, playing those records, how they made my family members feel. So that's where it came from. Wanted to just play the right records and have everybody have a good time.
Mm-hmm. So that morphed into you creating them. And
Yeah, finding drum machines here and there along the way. When I was like 10, I got a hold to a Boss. I think it was a 606. And I was playing around with the 606 and turntables and scratching and making, programming beats. That was my teenage years. Um, going to school, Davis Junior High School, Dickinson. And having people that that like the same music I like. Watching, ultimately the Run DMC era and watch how that changed like our style of dress and what I mean, it was all a school of fish back then. Like, it seemed like everybody from every part of America, every black person moved at in the same rhythm. You know.
mm-hmm. There was no East
Um,
Coast or West Coast thing at that point, really. Not
oh
really.
no, no.
Right.
I was on what they was on. I'll take two of those. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
but basically, and listening to sounds, being real proud of local groups.
Right.
You know. Um, you know, obviously NWA, but even before that, like um the dudes who selling Jailbait
Right.
and Toddy T
Toddy T, Battle Ram.
and
Yeah.
Fade, you know, listening to the local, you know, because they just felt so touchable, you
Right.
know, and when they would say Compton, we all, you know what I mean?
Right.
Um, you know,
Yeah,
but yeah,
man.
basically just staying in the house because at that point, um, you know, the streets were unnecessarily dangerous.
Right.
You know, anybody could get it at that point. So music kept me in the house.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. I
And
mean,
people gravitated toward me because I would build my own speakers, make my, you know, what the I guess what the Jamaicans call sound bombing. You know, I would make my own speakers and play records that I bought that I liked, and people started coming to ask me to make them a cassette of those records, and I would make like $10. You know what I mean?
wow.
Make a mixtape. I got to recording back when we had VU meters and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
You know, I was
crazy.
riding the VU meters, pause mixing off the radio. I did everything that a B-boy should do. Like, you know, my peers call me a B-boy. I
Yeah.
guess I was a B-boy.
Come on, man.
And that's
That
still
go ahead. Oh yeah, come on. Yeah. It just evolved. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
It's
man, come
like
on.
if you came up in that period, I mean, I was in LA, you know, so not too far. But if you came up in that period, those are things that most of us that are producers at this age, we learned early on that. Like it was pause button mixing, before was any, you know, cutting waves and, you know, doing all that stuff, man. We learned the old fashioned way. And one thing I wanted to ask you though, man, is like making beats is cool. I get it. You were making beats and all that, but man, you really got an you developed an acumen as an engineer, like a real bona fide engineer. So that's not guessing, that's not luck. I know it's trial and error, but where did you learn your actual skill for being such an incredible mixer and engineer?
Thank you, Trev.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple of names. There's a uh, uh, there's Courtney Branch,
Oh
Dr.
yeah.
B,
Dr. B.
Dr. B
Come on.
Series, and
Yep.
Tracy Kendrick. Being in the record pool, they gave me a heads up as with the records of what was going on. And they used to mix records, and it's a process to go from real tape to master tape to mastering to pressing and then getting a test pressing back. And so that process always intrigued me. How to get the biggest, coolest sounding vinyls, because every now and then we get some vinyls that sounded like you would buy a vinyl, it was quiet. Like that don't make sense. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
how do you get the most bangingest, most impactful vinyls? Um, so you know, I learned from him. I learned from Mike Frankie. He's one of our local guys. There were guys, what's his name? George Murphy, 8 Mile Road. He had a recording studio um, in like Hollywood, LA, Hollywood. And he had engineers up there I would learn from. You know, they had a big console. I think it was the Trident. It might have been a Trident board.
Mm-hmm.
And with him, I used to work with Richard Dimples Fields and LJ
Ha.
Reynolds from Dramatics
Yeah.
at, you know, 18. Player Ham, Penthouse Players Clique, the group that I joined, he was into 4-track recorders and drum machines too. So we shared what we learned, you know, with each other. And I would produce him. We got microphones, and I would like record, make beats on the SP 1200, and record his vocals on track 3, you know, track 2, 3, and then bounce all of that to 4, and then clear up tracks 2 and 3. You know, we ping pong recording as they call it.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Just trying to overdub. It was all the art of overdubbing.
Yeah.
You know, multiple tracks, blending sounds, seeing what sound good and what didn't. Preamplifiers, everything from Neve to back then API, you know, how all of these preamps impart a color to your sound. You know what I mean? And we
Yeah.
wanted that color. We wanted it to sound bigger than it actually did, just coming straight out of the drum machine,
Yeah.
you know.
That's
But
amazing, man.
yeah, I
Yeah.
learned, you know, and of course trial and error. Um, you know, looking at the going from studio to studio, like in my peak, and seeing, you know, new preamps, boutique preamps, Demeter, you
Yep.
know, Lang, these crazy names, Poltech, and just plugging into them and turning knobs and see what come out. But
Yeah.
it's all about painting, putting paint where it ain't, basically.
Yeah, man. I mean, and you use a lot of live instruments too. So I mean, early on, you know what I'm saying, you play all these instruments. And one thing I will say too, man, that some people may or may not know is your use of live percussion, which really can bring even a fully programmed track. It just adds some life to it.
It
You know what I'm
it it
saying?
it, it, it takes it out of the rigidity.
Yeah, man. And
Yeah.
that's something that, has now transcended through these latest generations. And, I do quite a bit myself because you can have something fully programmed. And as soon as you just do even a shake or a kabasa or something, it just makes some of the other instruments sound more human. You know what I'm saying? So
Exactly.
interesting, man. Yeah. And you utilize that early. Now,
You know who I got that from? I
who?
got that from uh the live percussion. What's my man's name?
Butch?
Carl Butch
Oh,
Small.
Butch. Yeah, Butch Smalls. Come on, man.
Yeah.
The
Butch was
guy.
opening up all those tracks for Death Row.
Yep.
And I was like, bro, and I asked him to play on one of my songs. And he played on Dollars and Cents and
Mm.
killed it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, wow. It just that percussion's amazing. So there was a time when I couldn't get him. He was locked up in the studio, and I couldn't use him on none of my records. So I was like, well, and I couldn't find no other percussionist. So I just went to West LA Music and went into the drum area and just start picking out all my own percussion, playing it in the store, you know, imagining it on any of my productions, and went home and practiced and just start playing on my own stuff.
Yeah, that's a staple now, man. Like literally, I can't speak for anywhere else. Some of the other demographics, like say Atlanta or New York, but I know in LA, that is really one of the staples of our sound now. You know what I'm saying? And we see
Yeah,
people, doing that. You see, Rants of 1500 even playing live. But those of us that were around you all that know, we kind of took that, and that's the thing. I know Terrace, has live percussion on a lot of stuff, and it's like it's part of our sound. But you were one of the early people to even bring that to the forefront, man. So thank you for that.
man, right on, Trev.
Yeah. So now you also we're talking about this divide too on the gear side because you came up, analog was kind of the thing, and then it started morphing to digital. So you actually
Yeah.
learned when it was still tape. So from then to now, right, with the ease of everything, do you feel like anything has been lost through that process? I know it's much easier, but is the soul of it gone because of how easy things are today?
Well, it goes back to coloring your sound, right? Coloring is what people like today is they like real clean, clinical, and clear. The color was the warmth. That was what the tape machine imparted. It gave you second and third harmonic distortion. Harmony and turned up is what that is. It turns up the harmonies, and you feel them differently. Like it's like piano chords, major and minor. That's what harmonics are in tape. So when you take the tape machine away, we all got these records that were demo. They all still sound like demos because they haven't been committed to tape. And when you commit to tape, it just makes better vinyls. Like I'm reluctant to buy vinyls outside of Tyler the Creator for my grandson. I'm reluctant to buy vinyls because I know that they're not using tape. It's too expensive. It's too avant-garde, if you will. But
Yeah.
that was the glue. That was the color. It's like everything sounds to me, if you give it a color palette, everything is pastel and earth tone. Whereas tape was dumb colorful, super colorful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also a whole generation of engineers that don't even know how to get tones or to use a tape machine. I mean,
Man.
you
Well,
should put a
they're missing two-thirds of their sound.
right.
And you can tell because there's I don't know if it's scientific, but for me as a DJ, there's a playability factor for
Yeah.
records that come from tape. You can play them over and over again, and they just feel good. Like I never get tired of listening to. Chicago. Does anybody really know what time it is on vinyl? It just
Hmm.
feel it's alive. It's huge.
Yeah.
That's from tape. The records that go right into Pro Tools, unless you color them yourself and put a little, second harmonic distortion on it from Neve, 1073s, and the colors that they add, unless you use some transformer based or FET based or tube based colorization, then you have this one tone sound, and it's hard to want to hear that over and over again.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Our
Yeah.
records lasted and still last. When I perform in concert now, those records still sound good. The stuff that I did later with Pro Tools, where I didn't have tape, it doesn't resonate as much in the concert arena
Mm.
as the analog, big, heavy bottom stuff.
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting, man. That's so true about the harmonics and what has actually happened on the physics. What's happening on the physics side with recording analog versus digital. And I know a lot of people may not understand, but they know they feel something when you say go back and listen to a Thriller on the album versus on the iTunes, right? It's
Right.
different. It's a different experience, man. You know what I'm saying?
I'll give you an example. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Check this, and I'll tell you another thing too. Why digital came is because it's more practical. It's everybody can handle it. See,
Hmm.
these
There you go. Two
these
inch.
are impractical.
Right.
You gotta put them up. They gotta be under the air conditioner for the rest of their lives. But they capture energy better than anything else. Pro
Yeah.
Tools, you record signals. Magnetic tape picks up the energy in the room too from the people
Mm-hmm.
because
Interesting.
it's tangible. It
Yeah.
picks up, it records vibrations too from
Yeah.
people. Just much the same way that if you bump a CD player, it won't skip, right?
Right.
But if you bump a turntable, it vibrates and moves. It reacts, and it reacts sometimes negatively, sometimes positively. It's tangible,
Mm-hmm.
and tape is tangible too. It's like vibrations affect us. And if you got good energy, like my first few albums, recording in there, we should just throw parties around the tape machine while it was running, and record. And then when you go back in there and listen back, you feel the party.
Yeah.
Like songs like Tonight.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, this is the missing link.
Yeah. Wow. 2 inch tape, y'all. If you don't know what that is, please go look it up. That's a reel that would house 2 inch tape. You know what I'm saying? And that each one of those reels had its own cost associated with it. If they get
Yes,
too
it did.
old, you got to take it to a place and they got to bake it so that the particles cannot disintegrate and you can save the tape. All these things that we had to deal with that are different than a thumb drive or a hard drive is today. That looks like a actual. There you go.
This is
New
what
tape.
this is what separates me from everybody else.
Yo, crazy.
I still record to tape.
Ooh, yeah, man.
It's the most expensive medium there is, but it does all the work for you. And when people hear it, they not only hear what you did, they feel it.
Mm,
So
that's a level of musical integrity that a lot of people don't want to take the journey. They want to go the easy way, man. But sonically,
I've worked with the youngsters, the young engineers, talented. I love seeing growth, and I love giving people a shot. And they don't understand the concept.
mm-hmm,
And I would implore any of them. I would challenge any of them to just get a 4-track, like do everything in Pro Tools that you want to do, and then print it to tape and see how saturated you can get it before, and quiet you could get it before you just give up and stay in your plugins. Like my plugin does that. Your plugin does a 2-dimensional copy of it. It's
mm-hmm,
not. There's no front and back. There's no depth to it. Like almost a 3D element is what that is. Mixing in the box, I have no problem with it. I love Manny American. I love Chris Lord,
mm-hmm,
Algie, all these guys. Um, but that's just not my thing. Getting different tones and transients out of a console live, it moves people. It moves me.
mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
and that's why I stay out of the. I mean, ultimately, I have to go in the box sometimes. But if I can just stay on a 24 track, I can get my whole idea down on 24 tracks. Like you know, my most popular records, Quick is the Name, Way Too Funky, were a 24 track tape and
Mm,
sync and SMPTE to
right,
lock up and be able to overdub.
right.
You know,
Yeah, that's
it's just alive. You can feel it.
I know, man. It's like, and for those of you that don't know, Society of Motion Picture and Television Engineers is what SMPTE was,
Yep,
the
SMPTE
acronym
time
for.
code.
Yeah, and that's how things used to be locked up back in the day. You physically would
It
have to
it
go
would read
stripe a
that
tape.
with time code, and it just ran a time. And anything that was being read by SMPTE would follow that time code. It was like a
Yeah,
train on the tracks, and it
yeah.
would always be where it was supposed to be. That was made for movies.
Remember,
You know, made
remember,
to synchronize film and audio.
remember when cats started taking two tape machines and figured out the numbers to fly hooks? One tape machine had
Oh
the
my
hook.
God, bro! Yeah, you had to. It was called offsets.
Yeah.
You had to do SMPTE offsets. Somebody
Yep.
was sitting up there nerding out and
Yep.
wrote down a number where it would offset the tape machine 16 bars for
Yep.
that tempo.
Yep. See, this
Yeah,
is,
it was tempo versus seconds and minutes.
and now
You bad
it's,
motherfucker. You remember that, Trev?
yeah, I shout out to my guy, Bob Tucker, who used to work at our studio, Blue Palm. And that was the
Yeah.
first time I saw that, man. I was like, yo, this is like a magic trick here. You know, he's like, watch this. The hook's going to come back in. Like, what?
Like,
Now,
and that was, if you think about it, fidelity, fidelity wise, that was the best way because it only was one generation. But
exactly.
then ultimately, we got samplers like the S1000 and the Eventide even samples, the
Yeah, the
H3000 samples. You know,
H3000. Yeah, Cat started using the H3000 to do that. Yeah.
yeah. Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis used to do that. So you
Yeah.
would get your hook, record it in there, and then go fly it. I mean, it had a second generation on it, but it was still a vibe. You
Right.
know, and then you fast forward to Pro Tools, you just cut and paste it and move it right there.
It,
But that also, that to me, that made artists, including myself sometimes, made us lazy.
mm-hmm.
Because then you don't record the whole vocal all the way down. You just get it, 8 bars of it, and then you just go and put it in the places where you want it to be.
Yeah.
And instead of recording it, physically recording it where you wanted it to be and getting it right, trying to get it right each time, each chorus had a different character,
Right. Yeah.
you
You
know?
hear you hear those older records and you could feel that. There was the whole
Yeah.
record was a journey, even musically. You know what I'm saying? It was always
Yeah.
this journey. You know, you had each musician's interpretation of what the music was, and they might add something, and it just becomes a record. I mean, R.I.P. James Gatson, man, and he told a story when he was on here about, he put that bass drum in the break on Dancing Machine. And they were like, wait, what's that? He thought he made a mistake. And that became one of the hookiest parts on the record. Boom, 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 boom. It's like,
Yeah.
these are things that don't happen when you have somebody come to a session and say, I just need 8 bars, and you start flying. It becomes very mechanical. You know what I'm saying? So
Man.
while we're here, man, I mean, I think we should at least briefly touch on where things are now, because this same argument is now really being put in the forefront with where AI is going now. And, for someone who's definitely a trendsetter and an influence on just making tracks in general and what a lot of people aspire to, what are your thoughts on where AI is now? Because I feel like if we're talking about those things making us lazy, I mean, man, you got people that don't even know music now making music. Like, what do you feel about that?
Um, there's pros and cons to it. It's
Yeah,
it's it, just like anything. Too much of it is bad for you.
yeah,
Just like soda, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Just like sugar. It's too much of it is bad. If it's used the right way, it's dope. You know, if it's used in conjunction with what you do creatively, then it's true to what we like. It's true to
yeah,
what we're used to. Um, but the whole cheating element of it, you can feel that. You can hear that. You
yeah,
know, it's not gonna make you write a better song than say, Ashford and Simpson wrote back in Motown in the '60s. You're not gonna go and top them with an AI record. You're not gonna top, what we've done,
mm-hmm,
lyrically with an
mm-hmm,
AI record. You can just gaslight people into thinking that you're a producer and a composer by letting AI do everything for you. That's anybody can do that. And the funny thing is, it's going to show because of the AI footprint. Everybody can hear the same thing. You can see, like when you look at AI videos, you can see the fakeness in them. You can see where
yeah,
they don't have it right. is jittery and
Yeah.
it's artificial
Yeah,
basically.
our bro Warren Campbell said something too when he was on. It made a lot of sense. It's like, you can always hear the limiter and the mastering section on the AI stuff because it's all kind of the same. So no matter what the track is at the end, it just has the same kind of
It's got a
processing.
stain in it. It's a
Yeah,
footprint.
yeah, and you could
Yeah.
tell.
Yep.
What do you
Yeah. It's
think of?
not live at all.
What do you think about using it in the creative side, but not on as the master side? So just as something to help spark an idea or maybe realize an old demo or old track to make you think about it differently, and then you redo it and you cut it with people or however you're going to do it, but not using it as a master
As the whole
situation.
thing.
Yeah, just as
Right.
a tool in that sense. Do you think that's something that is a decent workflow?
I, I'll be honest. I use AI. I use it for like stems. Like I
Mm-hmm.
use Lalal and Fader,
Mm-hmm.
where I just break up. I'll take songs that I like. If I don't have a 24 track of it, I'll just put it in stems
Mm-hmm.
and break it all down and listen to it. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
And use it as a skeleton. Just explode it out.
Yeah.
So I love that. I mean, I used to do that. I did that. I started doing that in the turn of the millennium, like 2000. And I showed Dre that trick of how to do stems. Like I did Papa Don't Take No Mess and took everything out of it, including James Brown voice, and it just had the drums. And Dre was like, "Fuck, I don't know how you doing that." I was on that shit.
Yeah, I
Like,
remember that.
do it,
I remember
do it,
that, bro.
man. Do it till you satisfied. I cleaned it, took the noise out. It was like that was AI. That was like the beginning of bandpass filters and compression and level, where
Right.
you could have bandpass compressors, expanders take and gate stuff out. And AI just took that 25 years or 20 years later. AI just took that concept that I had and expanded on it to where
Yeah.
they do it artificially.
Yeah.
Like it'll go in, and the way it seems like it works to me is that all vocals fall in a certain register, and it has to make sense. All the drums fall in a certain, is registers a certain way, and it has to
Right.
make sense. So AI goes in and carves every piece of that track out for where the frequencies are, where the amplitude is, and where the range is. And
Yeah.
sometimes it don't get it right because strings resonate like vocals sometimes. So you'll hear strings in the vocals. So they
Mm-hmm.
don't have it all right. But if you're doing it for educational purposes, to me it works.
Yeah. I mean, and I remember when Elise's tried to come out with that little box to do that. They came out with the little one of those little when they had those nano series, and it was like a tiny little half space box, and I got it. It was supposed to
I
do the
don't
vocal
remember.
thing. It didn't really work that well, but the folks have been trying, for a long time, and now we see it in the DJ world. Now you can just do stems live for any
Right here on my
song.
turntable, right here on my
Yeah,
Rain,
yeah.
on my Rain 72 over there.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
I mean, those type of, those are incredible use cases, but sitting up
right.
just trying to make a song from nothing with no musical whatever, that's kind of that shouldn't be permitted. That's not permissible.
That's how I feel. Don't
Yeah.
don't 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 try to get rich and famous without doing what we did to get rich and famous. Like
Right.
don't try to like don't try to start the marathon like 100 yards to the finish line.
Right. Or don't try to run the marathon and you took, 8 gallons of roids, the night before. It's like it's
Animal.
ridiculous, man. So, now here's one thing, man, because you're one of the first people to actually, and I'm just now thinking of this now, this correlation. So you were one of the first people in hip hop to really do what Stevie was doing, which is be that guy that is the voice and doing all the production, right? So it's like we didn't
Man,
really see that in hip hop before you that many times, if at all, right? I
man.
mean, there was only a few people. I mean, you had your Eric Sermons, but other than
Yeah.
that, and of course Dre, but other than that, man, as far as and really you hands-on actually doing the stuff, man. I mean, it just wasn't a lot of people. So, you've mastered both of those things. So is there a different approach when you're doing something that you know is going to be for you versus when you're producing something for someone else? How does that
Hold on,
how does
Trev.
that mind?
You just I never put Stevie Wonder is my favorite living artist, period. And I never put myself in the same pantheon as this guy
It's the
ever.
concept,
He
bro.
just he
Listen.
just fucked me up. Now that I think about it, yeah, I could start a song. I like synthesis. Stevie's always at Guitar Center with Ryan Mason. Shout out Ryan Mason.
What's up,
That's
Ryan?
my yeah, man. That's my he's my equipment manager. Stevie's always up there buying new stuff. You know, he's
Always.
always, and then he gifts it. He buys the new MPCs and samples. You know what I'm saying? And
Mm-hmm.
he plays with these toys still, and he gives them away. He teach. You know what I mean? He's such a
Yep.
bad dude, man. I'm honored, man. But yeah, no, it was a means to an end. Like we want to. I just wanted to get a record deal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? From the time I was 18 to the time I actually got it, you know, working with Player Ham and Tweed Cadillac and people in our neighborhood like the Uzi brothers, like our little local guys, Battle Cat. You know, Battle
Cat.
Cat sent Box to me. We just lost Box. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
We just lost Billy Davenport. But Cat gave me the news last night. But you know, our local guys, you know what I mean? Like I just wanted to be with like the LA Dream Team and Rodney O and Joe Cooley.
Woo.
You know, these are my
Yeah.
heroes. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? With these sounds that banged out of everybody's Suzuki Samurai and Cutlass. You know what I mean?
And the Hyundai, them
And
Hyundais.
I didn't want to say the Hyundai Excel. I swear to God, I didn't want to say that little $5,000 car. Them motherfuckers. Do you see them today? No, never. So, you know, but that's what I do. I get on the keyboards and I write out parts and I save them if they're cool, if they don't sound like something I've heard before. Man,
Yeah.
I kind of got that from Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. Like they if they got a DX7, they would have somebody change all of the stock sounds, you know, do something to them, make them different. They didn't want to use stock sounds. And me either. It's like, you know, anybody could do that. But if I dial in and play with it, I get that from Kenneth Crouch too. Like, you know,
Crouch.
play with the, you know, turn the knobs, remember to put it all in muscle memory. Don't just play the keys, play the whole circuit.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and record it and make it something that you can. This is the magic. Make it something that you want to hear twice.
Yeah, man.
Because
That's
some of these records, I hate to say it as a DJ, some of these records I don't want to hear twice because they're missing some things. I mean,
mm,
they're records. They're just records. They're not like something I want to hear over and over again. And I don't know if that's innate in Pro Tools, how Pro Tools, you know, or whoever's mastering it, if they're not adding some kind of saturation that makes it likable or where you can feel it dance on your skin, it's hard to play those records twice.
yeah.
I
Interesting.
try.
Interesting, man.
I try, bro. Because I don't want to be like the hater of the group, like, yeah, I
Right.
don't like that. Yeah, fuck that shit. It ain't what I do. No, I'm a DJ at the end of the day. Like I get paid to go just play records.
Right.
But I play records that I know are proven to make people move.
Yeah.
You know,
Interesting.
Eric B and Rakim, NWA, Easy E, Eric, classic stuff like that.
It's
Because it's like, In Vogue. I play that before I play like some of the new stuff because the
right.
new stuff, yeah, it's new, but it's only new because you just put it out.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. It doesn't. It's not fully cooked. It's almost
Mm.
like microwave music. It's like microwave food as
Mm.
opposed to home cooked meals,
Right. Yeah, that's
and you can feel it. You can feel
hey.
it.
I mean, the one thing I'll say is that the reason is a lot different. I feel like, back in the day, like even with all those
Yeah.
artists you just mentioned and yourself included, people were trying to make music to reflect the time, to, reflect places, to provide a backdrop of a emotion, all these other
Lamb.
reasons. And now it seems like people make music to try and cheat and influence algorithms. It's trying to second guess algorithms. This has nothing to do with the reason, that we're doing
Right.
stuff. We used to do stuff. And I think that when you say you could play a record and it just falls flat, there's just no emotion behind it. Somebody on a laptop anonymously making a record that they've sent to 50 people, somebody says, I'll do it. They never meet. I mean, there's no connection anymore. You know what I mean? And it's like, hopefully, I'm seeing a small type of resurgence in the younger people, you know, like 17 and 16, 15. I'm seeing them really be into going to shows, not really being into AI, and really being into finding artists that are making actual music, you know, the old fashioned way.
For
So
them.
yeah.
So they're looking, so naturally, they are being driven to the authenticity
Yep.
of music and the emotion in it the same way that we did.
Yep.
That gives you hope for the future, bro.
Yeah. Real
Yeah,
talk.
I had no idea that, you know, the kids were up on it like that.
Yeah, I
That's
found
great.
out too. Yeah. So now you've been privy to something that a lot of people have never been able to say or really don't know much about, and that's being in the studio with Pac. Right? So
Yeah.
especially during like All Eyes on Me, but you know, producing, mixing, is there any memory from those sessions that stands out to you that you can mention, you know, about his like work ethic? Or because I know for a fact when we had Blue Palm, that was one of his spots. And I was always told he had 5, 6, 7, 8 studios going at once, and he would just always be working, right? So,
Yeah.
you know, what can you speak to about that?
Well, I can speak to the 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 fact that he was never in the room with me.
Mm-hmm.
It meant that he was in all of them other 7 studios because I was in number 8. But when he came in, I had something ready for him. You know, we
Right.
pushed the tape, you know, push play on the tape machine, and he the shit would start spinning up, and he'll sit down with his pen and paper, start writing, roll a blunt, start writing, go in there. All right, I got it. Just like I've seen Jay-Z do that too, personally. Same
Mm-hmm.
kind of work ethic where they they don't have time for bullshit. They just want to keep um archiving their life, you know, and sharing.
Mm-hmm.
So he'd go in there, he'd spit that shit, he'd do the overdubs, he'd be like, all right, quick, put a hook here, and for the most part, it was it was surreal to see somebody work that hard. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and for him to have just gotten out of gotten out of that, you know, that situation in New
Right.
York.
Right.
I just seen him getting more angrier and angrier, bro. And I would turn his vocals down a little bit. I never told anybody this, but some of the anger that he would spit on the microphone used to unnerve me a little bit and give me chills
Wow.
because it was like it was scary. You know what I mean? So I would mix his vocals a little bit lower and let the music be like loud. You know,
Yeah.
because when you push him up, like on hit him up, like it's scary. It fucks with my emotions.
Wow.
You know, because it just feels like something's gonna happen. It's a train wreck.
Wow.
Um, Dead ass. So I would turn this like All Eyes on Me. Some of the vocals are a little bit lower to let the music kind of take because I didn't want nothing to happen to him. Because I knew Pac, you know, with Digital Underground,
Right.
but the Pac that came to Death Row was a gangster.
Right.
You know what I mean? Not
Right.
the you know, the Black Panther. Like I like the Black Panther
Right.
Pac. I like the Humpty Dance Pac.
Right.
Um, but that wasn't my. Well, I was there. I was there to finish his album, and I
Yeah.
did. And I did the best I could. Fast forward now, it's in the Hall of Fame, the Grammy Hall of Fame. I'm very proud of that. You know, I just wish we had more time, and I wish Pac would have calmed down and got free because
Mm-hmm.
I know he was still on out on bail. So he never really felt the freedom that he did before he caught that case.
Got you.
You know, so
Yeah.
something was taken away from him that was a zest for living. You know what I
Mm.
mean? And you
Yeah.
could kind of see it. You know, so my thing was just to, you know, help him have as much fun as you can. You know what I mean? Smoke
Yeah.
with him, drink with him, talk shit, toured with him. You know, um, Pac was and he was intense. Like
Mm.
the only other person that's like him to me is Tretch. Like they are
Ah.
intense, they powerful and intense and intentional. Like what they do is what they do. Um, but yeah, it was like seeing one of the greatest of all time do it when he was
Wow.
doing it. And I'm a rapper, I
Right.
rap, so I had to, you know, I changed my hat for that session.
Wow.
You
Yeah.
know,
That's
just became
amazing, bro.
engineer
That's
and
amazing.
documented. I had spec EQs, like we had the SSL in there, SSL 4000, but I
Right.
would put like Nate Dogg's vocals through my spec just to get a little bit more air on the top, like the air band, and we made a we made a we made history.
Classic, man. Oh yeah. That's
I wish he was
amazing.
here, man. I wish he was
Wow.
here. I wish we could have I wish he could have just got out of that, you know, got the retrial done, and then walked free, be on probation or something, to where he felt like he had his life back. He's
Mm.
just, I know he felt like I was on probation, so you feel like you just got a long tether. You're not
Right.
free. You
Right.
got an ankle monitor. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So you can't. Yeah, I can't go to the hood right now with y'all, my nigga, and go get lit. You know what I'm saying? They gotta check in at 10. I gotta be right here. That's how
Yeah.
he felt,
Yeah.
and I
Wow.
hate that for him.
Wow, man. Well, thank you for sharing that, bro. And I agree with you. Not from experience, but I definitely have an artist I work with that did, 17 and a half. And I just saw from the time he came out how it was so tough for him to just assimilate back into society. You know what I'm saying? It took,
Yeah,
4, 5, 6 years, and now he seems to be cool. You
yeah.
mentioned Digital Underground. I found something out yesterday that I didn't know, which was they were basically, I mean, I know Pac's from New York, but they were basically from Philly, and they popped in Oakland. But my barber just happened to go to Philly. He had to go cut Cletus for the funeral. And he told me that I had no idea because I only knew them associated with Oakland. So you learn something new every day.
I have no idea either. Jersey? I mean Philly?
Yeah, man. I was bugged out. I was like, what do you mean? He was like, yeah, people, they know them from Oakland, but he was like, they popped off in Philly. Like they're essentially from Philly. I mean, I don't know if they formed
That's
there or what, but it's ironic, you know what I'm saying, that I just found this out yesterday. But, listen, there's a lot of stories behind the scenes, and that's one of the reasons why I even do this podcast, so people can start putting the crumbs together and start
come on,
seeing
man.
these.
Hey, crumbs equal cake.
Come on, exactly,
Crumbs
man.
equal cake. So yeah, no, man, it makes sense. Okay,
Yeah,
so that's why it didn't just sound like it sounded more commercial
right,
than a Bay Area record. Bay Area
right.
records to me are more underground and G until they blow up, like E40 and Pac and whatever. But
Yeah.
it was something about Digital Underground it reminded me more of X Clan than it did of Too
Mm-hmm.
Short. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean?
Man,
So
X-Clan. Woo. I went to see them in Hollywood Live. Remember Hollywood Live?
I remember Hollywood. Yep,
With
man, talk that shit,
the hey,
man.
so now we're talking about that. I mean, we've been here long enough to see all the evolution from jerking to, all that stuff that's been happening when you had all those World on Wheels years and all these different iterations of the LA culture, the Compton period, because Compton came on so strong, it pretty much dominated the LA thing. Then we had the whole Long Beach run, and it's like all these periods, then the Bay Area stuff. Like, who are some of the new generation artists or producers, that are catching your ear right now, or movements that are catching your ear right now?
Ty Dolla Sign is bad.
Oh yeah.
Jay Worthy, it has his post on this shit. Meet the Whoops, talented dudes. Problem is he's alumni now, so he ain't new, but
Right.
he's still the younger generation that's killing it.
Yeah.
That's moving the needle, as we
Yeah.
used to say.
Yeah.
Um, um, you mean from the West?
Yeah, just
Or
from
you
just
want
from
to?
LA area, from the West Coast. It could be Bay Area too, but
Yeah, I like.
anywhere in
Where's
the
Chef
state.
Boy from? Where's Chef? I'm from the Deuce, the Foe.
I don't
Where's he
know.
from?
I don't know where he's from, man. I ain't even
Chef
gonna
Boy
speak
sound like
on it.
he sound like he from around the way. You
Yeah.
know, um, these guys are all they getting down, bro.
Yeah.
Currency still is still hot to me, like hearing him on shit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Mustard is one of my favorites right now because he mastered the art of the simple 808 fun stuff. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And sample from it. Was it's not enough? What record is that? He sampled Rakim on that dun 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 dun
Oh
dun
yeah,
dun
yeah,
dun
yeah,
dun dun
yeah, yeah,
dun.
yeah, yeah,
dun.
yeah,
But for
yeah.
him to just go pant pant pant
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
pant, I'm like,
yeah,
hey, that's it.
yeah, yeah,
Fun,
yeah,
funkin'.
yeah, man. And I mean, of course, on the jazz side, you got T and Kamasi and all those cats.
Yeah,
On the whole
Kamasi
other,
Washington, Terrence Martin.
yeah, the whole other side.
See, that's a whole nother color.
Right,
You know,
right.
I
And
mean,
Terrence
fifteen
live in
hundred
both
them aren't
sides. You know what I'm
new.
saying? Yeah,
1500 aren't new,
yeah,
but what they do is incredible too.
yeah. I mean, and I think one thing I've noticed just being from LA, like, and just listening to like, stuff that was really like that existed, like hood type LA music, like, gang bang music or gangster, whatever you want to call it, over the years, I saw now there seems like there's much more of a similarity between down south and up north music. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm hearing a lot of stuff that we would have only been hearing in the Bay Area days. It seems like it's kind of mixing a little bit with what's going on down here now. You feel me? Do
Yeah.
you like the pulse and just the overall cadence, not necessarily the rapping, but some of the music I've heard kind of a similarity to where it
Like
used to be
like
very different. You know what I mean?
no, like I fuck with Larry June heavy.
Oh yeah. Come on. Yeah.
See what I'm saying? So
Yeah. Yeah.
they making like that's like modern day West Coast yacht music. You know what I mean? It's that shit is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's Rolls Royce music. So
Yeah.
that's that slow flow, that not jolting, really like showcasing the mellowness in the music. That's dope. That's a good
Yeah.
color.
Well,
That's a good color.
so I've told you this a lot of times. I quote you a lot when I do master classes. Like I use this in a lot of the stuff that when I'm imparting wisdom to the next generation, and that's one of your album titles, and it was balance and options, right? And so
Man.
that's one of the greatest. I love that. That's just such a
That's an
powerful statement.
analogy. That's
Yeah,
an
it is.
analogy
That's
for life. It's like,
yeah,
you know, everything that comes to this shit is all about balance.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's it's balance, and then when it's out of balance, you just weighing your options to get it back balanced. It's like what autopilot does in a plane. It's always computing. It's always computing. It's always taking. It's always counteracting and an act. It's
hmm
always if the plane yaws, it just brings it back in without you even seeing it happen. That's why we fly so smooth. If a pilot had to do that the whole time, it'd be like riding. It'd be like riding a jet ski.
right.
So those are the options, the shit that we don't see. And it's also a little bit spiritual. It's like, make sure that you're not letting, again, make sure you're not letting negative, take over your studio, because the tape will pick it up. You know what I mean? And if
Mm.
you spread that, it puts energy. It's subliminal.
Mm-hmm.
You'll put negative energy on a record, and you don't know why you're feeling funny when you're listening to it, but you will. Like music is emotional. It's
Mm.
emotion.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Wow.
So, the whole balance and options thing was, I was working real fast. That was the first record that I did that was mastered like, it was like mastered like MP3. That's how I got it done so fast, because I mixed it on tape, but then I dumped it down and edited it, in the MP3 world, and
Mm-hmm.
mastered that.
Mm-hmm.
Compressed audio, basically, the first compression, where it still sounded good.
Right.
Like MP3 ultimately started to have
Yeah.
um anomalies
Yeah.
that aren't very musical. Um,
Yeah.
but for the most
Even now,
part,
yeah. I mean, even
you can
now.
put negative energy out there. I just didn't want negative energy out there because it comes back.
Right.
That goes to say, like, I hated the street element in the studio, because the studio it's clinical almost. It's like a hospital. It's almost it's clinical. We come in here to put good music down, because it affects people. You want to lift up people. You want people to feel good. You want people to bop.
Yeah.
That's kind of my philanthropy. I want people to whistle while they work, so to
Mm.
speak.
Mm-hmm.
And when certain artists that I used to work with would come in with like new gang members that they just met, from different neighborhoods, and I'm like, so who is this guy? Oh, that's
Right.
somebody from something street, right? And I'm like, okay, uh, is he armed? Like, is he strapped? Like, what's happening, fellas? Like, what is this about? Like,
Right.
my thing was, why y'all not bringing girls?
Right.
Like, bring a muse to the studio. Every time I look up, and it's all just a bunch of boys in the studio that don't belong in there, number one,
Right.
and are changing the energy to automatically just be negative. It's like y'all turning this into jail. This feels
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
a cell, as opposed to what you call it, a sacred place that we
Mm-hmm.
just write songs.
Well, I'll tell you what, bro. I appreciate you, man. And we could sit here for hours and hours and hours, man. What's something you got coming up that you want to plug, or anything like that coming out, or shows, or anything that you want to let everybody know about, man?
Oh man, I've been like a little bit sedentary over here, like
Mm-hmm.
just chilling, just playing with music, listening
Mm-hmm.
to stuff, thinking of coming up with new ways to attack doing music.
Yeah.
And the newest way for me is to do it the original way. It's with
Mm.
tape. It's with it's my sound. Because I think if there's one thing that was cool about doing stuff pre-Pro Tools is that everybody sounded different. Every single artist sounded different.
Yeah.
And that was just the way they recorded, the engineers that they used, the equipment that they used. Pro Tools comes along and everybody sounds identical. There's no bigger or smaller in there that'll get you out of it. It all comes into this box. Everything
Right.
comes into this package, and you sound like you're in that package.
Yeah.
So my shit would, if I just stay in Pro Tools, I can't do nothing no different than everybody sounds identical. Even if you
Right.
listen to the radio sometimes it sounds like one long song, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And there's no
Yeah.
disrespect, but that's what people want to do. They want to sound identical to another person, and that's
Right.
that's another way it changed. That
Yeah.
doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah.
So I do it for the art. I don't do it for the money anymore. I do it for the art.
Yeah.
I do it for the and whatever that gets me. I
That's right.
just have to be sincere and authentic to what I do. So
Well, I
I'm back
appreciate
to
you.
tape, and I'm in the copyright offices right now because my time has come for me to for the reversion of all my copyrights. So I've been taking care of my business with my copyrights.
Hey,
You
yes,
know,
sir. Yes, dang. That's
getting certificates of recordation.
oh man,
Good
amazing though.
stuff.
That's amazing. Most
Get,
people never get to see that reversion period, bro. That's 30
don't
years,
live long,
man.
don't live long enough to do it.
Come on,
But yeah,
man.
that's what I'm there.
Man, beautiful, man.
It's my
Beautiful.
work. All my babies are coming home.
Oh man, that is beautiful, man. Well, congratulations on
And
that, man.
hey, do you know this sound right here?
Yeah. I do, but ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know what that sound, that is a tape machine button. That's a button on a tape machine. For those of you that have never heard that foreign sound.
Hey.
Hey man, well, Quik, man, come on, bro. Man, thank you so much for pulling up, brother, with all your information,
Come on,
man.
man.
It's very, very, very inspiring, man. And thank you for taking the time to do it. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the greatest to ever do it, DJ Quik. Yes,
TrevBeats.
sir. Yeah. Oh,
Thank you, Trev.
and I gotta say this, ladies and gentlemen. DJ Quik was the first celebrity to ever rock a Drum Pimp t-shirt back in the day. So I'm giving you props for that. And we're gonna have to get some more coming out to you, man.
Thank you. Hey, let's share this too. I was the first artist to be promoted on a billboard. The first hip hop artist to be promoted with a billboard on Sunset.
Oh wow, that's big too. Let's go. Come on.
First,
All
yep.
kind of accolades today, man. Let's go.
My debut single was nominated for an American Music Award right out of the box.
Wow. Yeah, man.
Yes. Sir.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And hey man, well, the man, the myth, the legend, DJ Quik, and man, now you have blessed us, brother, and I can't thank you enough, man. Thank you.
My guy.
Yep. Talk to you soon, bro.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Trev.
All right.
Thanks for watching the TrevBeats Show. I'm Trevor Lawrence Jr. and we out.
It's the TrevBeats Show and we out. We out. We out. We out. It's the TrevBeats Show and we out. It's the TrevBeats